Hey everybody, sorry I'm a little late starting this live stream. Took me longer to get back from my new job than I was expecting. That's like a big announcement for this live stream is that I've started a little part-time job. It's just 12 hours a week, but which is exactly what I was hoping for, something that would just be supplementary. And because everything with this whole like podcaster thing is very unstable. One month I can have a good month and the next month and not. So I wanted one thing that was kind of a stability throughout the year that I could count on, but that wouldn't overtake my life or wouldn't stop me from doing what I'm doing. And so I'm really happy. And so far, I think it's gone pretty well. I've actually had 2 weeks at the new job, and it's been challenging, a little overwhelming, but I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm just going to be working as an aide, basically, for a school, special ed class, and so far, I think it's gone pretty well. So keep sending those prayers that it will continue to go well, and everything else will continue to work out. And there's a lot of exciting things happening this season. We just finished posting most of our previews for Hallmarkies podcast. We got both of our for Christmas season, both of our Hallmark previews done and posted, and we have our everything else. Which, if you like Ryan on the pod, then he's on that episode, so you should definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. We preview Netflix and some of the other channels and things, and so you should check out those over at Hallmarkies podcast. Even if you don't like the rom-coms, the previews are pretty funny, and so I enjoy doing those. People always look forward to every year. The only one we have left is we have Lifetime, and we haven't gotten their slate yet, so we can't do the preview yet. Probably in the next week or so, we'll get the Lifetime slate, and then we'll be able to do. But with this new job, like I still have all day Wednesday available for interviews and podcasts and things. I still have all day on Friday for everything, which is great because if I get a chance to go over to KSL for the movie show, that records on Fridays. So and that would be amazing. But there's lots of exciting things going on, and I'm really looking forward to starting the Oscar season, all those screenings, and the holiday season, of course, the Hallmark movies and everything. So I'm going to be super busy. This week, I had a play every single day and 2 on Saturday. So that's wild. But no screenings this week, although tomorrow I am going to see Saturday night. And I'm going to see, what's the other one that I'm seeing tomorrow? Oh, I'm seeing Piece by Piece tomorrow. So you'll see my little out of theater reactions for both of those posted tomorrow. So you want to look forward to that. And have a comment. We got the chat room open and the super chat. So if you feel so inclined, that'd be great. I'm glad work is going well. I sent Anyone But You, and it was a letdown, mostly not very funny. And it waited till the end to really get romantic. I agree. It feels like such an anomaly. We just don't get movies like that. So I was kind of inclined to be more favorable towards it than it probably deserved because it's so rare. But I didn't go fresh on it because I didn't think the chemistry was there. Was my biggest problem with Anyone But You. I felt like Sydney Sweeney was very wooden and flat, and I just wasn't feeling between the two of them. It's a sexy movie, but I didn't think they actually had very good chemistry. So I did not go fresh on Anyone But You. So I understand, but I wish that it wasn't such an anomaly that we were getting lots of rom-coms like that in the theaters, but we're just not. Almost all of them going straight to streaming, which is just a bummer. So thanks for sharing that. Okay. So let's talk about the movies that I've seen since my last live stream. Okay. So the first one is called Monster Summer, and this I feel like was really under the radar. I didn't even know existed until they sent out the screening notice, and it was kind of fun because Larry and Jackie, his friend Jackie, were in town, and so they got to come to the screening with me, and which was a lot of fun. and I enjoyed getting to see it with them. And I thought it was like a pretty decent gateway starter horror scary movie. I thought it got pretty scary, and I thought the kids were pretty good. And it had like at a certain point, it has like a guy with an axe, a hatchet. Like I mean, I thought it was pretty scary for that kind of a thing. It's definitely a little slow though. It got pretty boring at times, and there were a number of people that were asleep. So, it's not perfect by any means, but enough that I did recommend it. And it was fun to see it with my friends there. And then I saw, then I saw Joker Folie Due. And it's interesting because even though I did not recommend the film, I thought it was kind of a mess. I have felt like a certain degree of a need to defend it because I don't think it's a disaster. I guess I don't think it's as bad as some people are saying. And at the very least, I do think it's kind of an interesting failure, which I would rather watch an interesting failure than something that's just like boring and bland and has nothing, tries nothing, does nothing. And so, I think the biggest disappointment for me was the musical numbers. I thought for sure I would be the one defending the musical numbers and come on, they're not that bad. Like kind of like I've done for so many other musicals, The Prom or Dear Evan Hansen or, something like that. I'm like, oh, it's still a pretty good song and it's still enjoyable. Their heart was in the right place, blah, blah, blah. I thought that I would be able to I would be the defender of the musical sections, but I really couldn't with this because they had them sing so poorly. Even Lady Gaga was not like bringing it the way I know she can bring it. This was a directing choice. This was a specific choice to have them singing like that. And particularly Joaquin Phoenix, his voice was so strained. It was so unpleasant to listen to. So it really made the musical sequences a slog because they don't have anything to do with the story and they don't sound good. So you couldn't enjoy them. And I've heard people say, well, it's all part of Arthur's delusion that he thinks they sound good. He thinks that they're good. And I can understand that, but the point of a movie is to entertain. And so when we have sequence after sequence after sequence that don't sound good, then we're not entertained as an audience. The movie is not doing its job if we're not entertained. And that's a problem, I think. And I think that it would be one thing if it was one song or just the beginning of a song and we could see, but I actually think that the whole Arthur fantasy element would play better if he sounded really good. And he's in a choir. So what you could do is you could have him sing in the choir and it sound terrible. But then when it goes to the fantasy sequences, all of a sudden it sounds really good because that's his fantasy, right? In his fantasy, he sounds good. And we know he can sing good. This is not like a situation where it's not an Emma Watson situation where she sings terrible. He can sing good. He has sang well in movies like Walk the Line. So we know that he can do it. And so it was a specific directorial choice to have these musical numbers and then to have him sound terrible. That was what they wanted. And I just think that really hurt the overall entertainment level of the movie. And I think it hurt the fantasy level. It hurt what it was trying to say. Because again, if he sounded good in his fantasies, that says something to his level of delusion. If he went to the choir and sounded terrible and everybody was like, then that would be interesting. That would make sense. And so that was really disappointing to me as a musical fan, as the thing that was the most interesting to me about this movie was the fact that it had these musical numbers in it. And I just thought they dropped the ball. And the whole courtroom scene was so boring, so long, so repetitive that it wasn't interesting. It's kind of like the Save Martha scene in Batman v Superman. People can explain that till they're blue in the face about how it's all of this meaning and no, they had the same mother and that's humanity and everything. But it doesn't really matter if it's executed poorly, if it's clunky, and if it comes out of nowhere and it doesn't fit with the tone and the feel of the scene. All of that doesn't matter. So you can have an idea that on paper works and makes sense, but if the director isn't making it work, then it doesn't work. And that's how I would feel here. You can explain why this journey of Arthur as this wounded character who thinks that he can be Joker and truly isn't, that he isn't actually accepted as Arthur, he's just accepted as Joker. You can explain all of that to me till you're blue in the face, but if the movie doesn't execute that in an interesting way, if they have terrible singing, if they have performances that aren't the chemistry isn't meshing, if the pacing isn't working, if the scenes aren't interesting, if they aren't executing those ideas in a compelling way, then it's not going to work as a film. And that's just the reality of a film. Like film is in my opinion more story than it is art. It's one of the only forms of art that I think the story matters more than the art, than the actual visuals. People say, oh, film is a visual medium. Barely. I think it's barely a visual medium. Sure, yeah, it has beautiful artistry in the films, but if the story doesn't work, at least with me, it's almost never going to be saved on just the visuals. Never. The story is so fundamental to it working that I really think that film in general, you can relate, at least I relate to it much more as a form of storytelling than I do as a form of art, as a form of literature than as a form of art. And so you can tell me that all these visuals make sense and you can explain them, but if the story, dialogue, characters, plot, if that is not executed correctly, then it's not going to matter if it's pretty pictures. So that's just how I feel. That's how I feel. So yeah, I was really looking forward to Joker 2. I am ever so disappointed. I thought a musical Joker movie with Gaga as Quinn would be awesome. It is reportedly not awesome at all. Yeah, I mean, and it's a shame because, like I said, I think it is kind of an interesting failure. Like, I would tell everybody to see it because it makes weird choices, and I think it's kind of interesting to think about why it's not working. But it's not working. It's not working, and I'm hoping that that my friend Jax, that she can see the movie, and we're going to do an episode on this channel and on this podcast about why particularly the musical scenes don't work from the perspective of a musical theater experts. I think that would be kind of fun. So let's see. Also, Anyone But You mostly failed as a Shakespeare adaptation. Those two were now Beatrice and Benedict. Fair enough. I think the parts of the movie that worked the best were the ones that were the scenes that were the closest to Much Ado About Nothing. The scenes where they have what's called the gulling scene in Much Ado About Nothing, where they're planting the false rumor and everything, getting them those scenes were the most entertaining of the movie, but we just didn't get that much of it. That's the problem. And so it's a movie that I kind of, in a way, want to champion because so little are made like it, but I just wish it had been better. I wish it had been better. So, okay. Then I saw in the theater, I saw We Live in Time, and this is A24. Basically, this is a Nicholas Sparks movie with an A24 skin on it. So it has like a little bit more nudity than you'd see in a Nicholas Sparks movie. It does this nonlinear storytelling, so it's jumping all over the place. So that makes it like a little more indie. But at its core, it's basically a Nicholas Sparks movie. You can have the meet cute where they get in kind of a car accident. She sort of hits him with her car. And then their love, and then cancer, and I mean just all the beats of a typical Nicholas Sparks type of romantic weepy. And I think there's a place for those, and I think this is a pretty good one. Like the main thing that I require in that kind of a movie is the chemistry, and I think that's here in spades between Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. They have really good chemistry. But it is kind of slow. It's very predictable. It's very maudlin, very sentimental. But I mean, that's just part of the genre. So if you like romantic weepies, if you're a fan of the Nicholas Sparks type movies and books, then you'll like this. It is exactly what it is. And so I never really, that's something that's always really important to me, is to judge something for what it's trying to be, and is it successful at being that. And I think that this movie is successful in being what it's trying to be, in the grand tradition of your romantic weepies, going all the way back to Penny Serenade and Love Story, and movies like that. And this is a pretty good example of that kind of story. And Steel Magnolias, Beaches, that kind of story, then in terms of endearment, stuff like that. Then if you like that kind of thing, then you will like this. So there we go. Okay, then at the theater, I saw Megalopolis, and this is just as messy and as incoherent as you've heard. I had no idea what was happening most of the time, and so that just made it like really boring. I was not interested. I didn't see what it was trying to say. I mean, you just watch it and you just think some art projects should just be kept within the family. That if he wanted to spend his vineyard on this for his retirement, then God bless him. But he didn't need to subject all of us to it. And the acting, I actually thought, was like kind of across the board terrible. I mean, they weren't given that good of material, but it was all just so hammy and so I don't know, just felt like nobody was a real person. There was nobody with any like humanity that I could relate with and grasp onto. It just was a bunch of shouting, is kind of how every performance felt to me. So I certainly didn't get it. That's for sure. Okay, then the last movie that I saw in theaters was The Substance. I saw The Substance, and this was definitely going out of my comfort zone, because I'd heard, oh, this is really gory, and it definitely is really gory and gross. But I think it actually had something to say, and to me, it was worth it for the gore. And Demi Moore, she really does lay it all out there. I mean, it is a very brave performance, not just with her like nudity, but just a very vulnerable performance. And just she just goes for it in this role, and I appreciate that very much. But what I thought was really interesting, because it's basically about this woman. She is this star, and she's fading from relevance, and she gets offered this substance which will make her into a 20-year-old version of herself. But as she does that, it keeps drawing more and more out of her, and that's what gets kind of gross and disgusting. But it becomes harder and harder to keep swapping back to the old self. And what I thought was really interesting about this movie is that pretty much any time that anybody is talking about the younger version, they always couch beauty with love. That you're beautiful, everyone loves you. Everyone adores you. Everyone loves you. And I thought that was so interesting, because how often in life do we as human beings equate beauty, physical attractiveness, with virtue and what is good and worthy of praise? How many dictators have gotten to their place of power because they were charismatic and charming and likable, and all of those things that we put those on, that we equate so often these physical attributes and personality traits with virtue, with and I don't know, I thought that that was added a layer, that it wasn't just about the crazy body standards that certainly Hollywood has for women in particular, but there was also something a little bit more about how we value beauty. I think was there in the movie. So I think it's definitely worth seeing, even if you have to kind of turn away from some of the gross images. It really pushed my needle tolerance. If you feel like, oh, about needles, this movie will challenge that, and it did. But it was worth it. It was worth it. I think it was really good. Very well done movie. And I mean, you can nitpick the movie if you want. Like, the show that she's doing makes no sense for 2024. It feels like something that, like, Olivia Newton-John or Jane Fonda or somebody like that would have done in the 80s. This, like, exercise thing. So it doesn't really make sense. This New Year's program that she's on makes no sense. So, like, you could definitely, and why does she have no family, no support? She doesn't even have a manager. She's supposedly working at this show. She would definitely have a manager, an agent, somebody that would notice that she's half the time gone. And so there were a lot of things that, if you were nitpicking, don't make sense in the movie. But if you just kind of accept it and its premise, it has something to say, and I think it does so with some flair and some cool imagery and a good performance. So, okay, so then we have. Did you talk about The Wild Robot? It's a masterpiece. I cried, and as a disabled, self-diagnosed autistic person, Bright Bill's storyline meant so much to me. I actually talked about The Wild Robot in my last live stream, but yes, I completely agree, and I love hearing that you connected with the character. I thought it was really moving on so many different levels. Bright Bill's story, but I really connected with somebody who has never been a mother myself, and sometimes I felt like I don't have sort of the nurturing personality that you're supposed to have to be a mother, and I've never gotten a chance to kind of develop that, having my own children. The journey of Roz learning to nurture this Gosling, and becoming and it changing her and who she is, and like finding this humanity through nurturing, I thought was really moving and lovely, and it really meant a lot to me. So I think there's so many layers that you can connect with from The Wild Robot, and it's beautiful. The only thing that I didn't love was the score. I wasn't crazy about. I didn't think it quite worked for the different moments of the show, of the movie, but it was still an absolutely beautiful film. I loved it. I can't wait to get to see it again. I've only seen it the one time, but yeah, masterpiece. I agree. I would be shocked if there's a movie in 2024 that I like more than The Wild Robot. I would be shocked. So yay! It was really special. I loved it. Some other movies that I didn't see in theaters. Well, I mean, I saw Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. I think I talked about that last time. Such a moving documentary. And it was a lot of times, I'm not like super connected with celebrities and celebrity culture. Like, they're just normal people to me. Like, I don't idolize celebrities. But I did feel more of a connection to Christopher Reeve and his story, because I remember when it happened, like when his accident happened, I bought his book, and I don't know, I just felt like I was sort of more aware of him and his story during that time. And I remember when he passed away, and then Dana passed away just so soon after, and it was just so sad. And so it was very like emotional, and it was a portrait of a family and how they came together from this accident and this change and everything they experienced, and it was very moving. One of my favorites of the year for sure. Some others that I didn't see in the theater that still came out. What a disappointment the movie Wolves was. I thought it looked charming. I was really looking forward to it. I was like, why aren't they giving it a theatrical? And then I saw it and I was like, okay, that's why they're not giving it a theatrical. What a boring, bland, humorless film. I mean, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, just given practically nothing to do. I said in my review that I would have had more fun watching these two eat lunch, documentary of them eating lunch. There was no charisma, there was no chemistry. It was so disappointing. One of the most disappointing movies of this year, and that's saying a lot because I've been very disappointed by so many movies. I thought this was so lame. Then I saw The Outrun, and this is a movie starring Saoirse Ronan that she is this drug addict, and she's trying to connect with her past, but it keeps bringing back all of these things that led her to being this addict, and goes through lots of flashbacks and lots of partying, and she goes for it, and she gives it her all, and it's a great performance, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gets nominated for it. She's really good. The movie I did not care for. I thought it was very repetitive, and I think it's really, really hard to make movies about addiction that are good and compelling because it's such a selfish experience. It's such a narcissistic experience that it's just tough to make it a compelling, interesting. It's also a really repetitive existence that you keep, making the same mistake over and over and over and over again. That's why it's an addiction. So I think it's just very difficult to make that cinematic. And this, to me, did not succeed. I think this would probably, I don't know if it's based on a book or play or something. It's probably better as a book, I can imagine, because you can get in the head of the person a little bit more. You can explore, walk around with them a little bit more than you can with this movie. And so it was pretty boring to me. Then I saw White Bird, and I'm so surprised by the response. This got an A+ cinema score because it was very bland to me. I thought that it was just right out of the playbook of a million other sort of World War II, Holocaust kind of type stories. And their attempt to connect it with the bully from Wonder was just so weird. And Helen Mirren is only in it she's just the narrator, basically. She's at the beginning and the end. And I mean, it was fine, but it was so bland that it, I don't know, I was very surprised that it had an A+ cinema score. That was very interesting to me, but it didn't do much for me. So let's see, I'm trying to remember if I talked about, let's see here. I think I talked about the Critic in the last one. I think that's everything as far as movies go. I think I talked about everything. So there we go. So let's talk about theater. I've been seeing so many shows. And the big announcement for me with theater is that I have stepped aside from doing reviews for Utah Theater Bloggers Association. I just decided it was time to move on to just doing my own reviews and my own site, and writing for some other outlets as well, but mainly for my own content as a critic. And so I'm grateful for everything that I was able to do with them. But it was just time. It was time to move on, and so that was a big change and a big, I don't know, for me that was a big thing. But let's talk about some of these plays that I've seen, or musicals. Okay, so I saw with Larry and Jackie, I saw The Woman in Black, and this was at the Covey Center. And this is a black box. I had never seen this play. And I do think that the play, it drags a little bit in that first act because they have this unnecessarily set piece with it's a play within a play. But once you actually get to the event of the Lady in Black and the house and everything, it's pretty entertaining. There's some pretty good scares. And Matthew De La Fuente, he's been on this channel before, and he's very talented, and he was the lead in this, and he's just a real good actor. So that was fun to get to see. And then, of course, it was fun to have Larry and Jackie here for Fan X. I hope you enjoyed both of the videos that I did with Larry this week, and then the last week we had them on, and that was fun. Then I saw Alice by Heart. This was at Weber State University, and I had never seen this musical before. It only got like a short off Broadway run in 2019. It's by the same people who did Spring Awakening, and you can kind of feel that there's sort of the theme of, they both have sort of a theme of innocence being confronted by the like darkness of the world. And this one, Alice by Heart, is not as mature as Spring Awakening, but nevertheless, you could definitely feel like similar themes and similar themes in the music. I can see why this did not get much of a run or hasn't really gone anywhere on Broadway, because it was kind of a mess. The songs weren't that successful and it's just kind of all over the place. But I thought it was really interesting. And, you know, something like Alice in Wonderland, we have seen so many takes on it that I'm pretty open to it being an experimental take on Alice in Wonderland. And this was through the lens of a bomb shelter in 1941. And this girl is reading Alice in Wonderland to her friend, and they kind of have like a little romance. That's Alice by Heart. So the Wonderland parts are kind of your escapism from this horrors of the war. And they were incredibly creative in the production. And this was my last review for UTBA, which I thought was very ironic because they're very big on production for that site. And so to have like a production heavy show was interesting. But the Jabberwocky was so clever. It had like 6 hands, and it was like 8 feet tall. That was really cool. The costume for the Queen of Hearts, her crown was completely made out of syringes. So there were just some real creative things that they were doing, and I appreciate that. And I feel like a college campus, black box college campus, is the right place for that kind of experimentation going on. So that was really cool. Then I saw Something Rotten at the Empress. And this is a really cute little theater that's over 100 years old in Magna. They almost always nail it. They had a good Fiddler on the Roof last, and now they have this. And I just think this is a really funny musical. And what was interesting about this production is that it was pretty bare bones. It was pretty stripped. And so, for instance, in the musical section, musical song, they didn't have all the visual Easter eggs that you typically have in Something Rotten in this song. They just had sort of the dance and the music cues. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, and it made me kind of think. And it might not be as outright funny for some people that have never seen it or only seen it a few times, but for someone like me who's seen it many, many times, it was kind of a refreshing, different take. So I liked that. Okay, then I saw Jekyll and Hyde at Hope Box, and Hope Box is a really great theater. This is in Kaysville, and they have a mission that they donate the proceeds of their shows to their Hope Box recipient, who is somebody fighting cancer, and that is just a really cool mission. But their shows are also really good, and I mean, I've never seen them miss. I've seen so many things from them. Even if I don't love the actual show, the production is always great. The singing's really good, and so such was the case here for Jekyll and Hyde. They did so much in such a small space and were so clever. The choreography was really great. The guy who played Jekyll and Hyde, particularly Hyde, he was very fun. As Hyde, I really enjoyed that. And then the Lucy was awesome, and she nailed Someone Like You. That was really cool. That was really and incredible costumes. I just really enjoyed it. So, and I appreciate they're a small theater that still has mostly practical sets and things, because a lot of the small theaters are sort of embracing AI and projections and things like that, which I can appreciate. But they almost always have practical sets, which I appreciate. Okay, then I saw Funny Girl, and this is the national tour, and I'm so excited to be reviewing the national tour, and that was very exciting to get approved for that. And this is Funny Girl. Funny Girl is Funny Girl. You know, It has some very iconic songs. It has some great choreography, some good singers. I thought that the two leads playing Nick and Fanny had really good chemistry together. So that's like your most important thing for the show. But the second act really drags for this show, and you just don't care about this like toxic marriage. And most of the good songs are in the first act. Really, all of the memorable songs are in the first act. So the second act is pretty slow, but I feel like for me, Funny Girl is one of those shows that you just got to see for it to roll in musical theater. For it basically gave us Barbara Streisand, and everything in it feels like Barbara Streisand. And so you got to see it once, check it off your list, and then you don't need to see it again. So that's kind of how I feel. I'm very meh on it, but it's like for what it is, I think it's worth seeing. So then we have My Fair Lady, and this I just saw last night. This is at Hale Center Theater Orem, and this is the last regular season show at that Hale Orem. They're going to be moving to Pleasant Grove, changing their name to the Ruth, and it's going to be this huge complex and everything. And I'm so excited for them. They've been wanting this for a long time, for like 10 years, like a long time. But I've had season tickets to Hale Orem for many years, and I've gone to see them. It's just countless shows from them, and I do worry this new complex that's going to sort of lose its heart and soul. I love this little space that they have, so I'm a little sad, but I think this My Fair Lady was a really nice one for them to go out on. They're still going to have their Christmas Carol there, but as far as regular shows, this is the last one, and it was excellent. I mean, great singing, and what I thought that they did so well is they really brought the humor out in My Fair Lady. I was laughing the whole time, and that makes everything sort of more enjoyable if I'm laughing. And I particularly thought that Henry Higgins was very funny and brought the humor out in that role, which makes him more endearing, which makes the romance, especially at the end, more palatable because I like him and I like them as a couple. And they didn't have like the most amazing chemistry, but like again, because they were both funny, it worked pretty good. And the costumes were incredible. The choreography for the space was great. It was excellent. The only thing that I would say is that they could have changed the sets just a little bit more. I know the space is small, it's theater in the round, so they can't do like traditional set changes, but they could have done like a little bit more to differentiate different scenes and different sets and things like that. But other than that, I really did enjoy it, and I think that it's going to be playing for a long time, for like the next month or so. So if you get a chance to see it, if you're in this area, you should totally see My Fair Lady at Hale Orem. It's a lot of fun. So there we go. That's what I saw theater wise. Whew, that was a lot. But let's see here. We got any? My favorite, people have asked me what are my favorite movies that I've seen so far this year. And my favorite movies that I've seen so far this year, I'm not sure on the order, but it's Wild Robot, Musica, Chicken for Linda, Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, and Ghostlight, in some order in that. Those are my 5 favorite movies this year. And then I would probably say my 6th one for that list would probably be A Real Pain, which hasn't come out yet, but is really good. Really well written, really well acted. It's got heart and soul. So I think those are my top 6 favorite movies of 2024. So there we go. Let me know what your favorites are. And if you've seen any of these shows, if you have seen any of these movies we talked about, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. And thank you so much for supporting. Like I said, over at Hallmarkies Podcast, we got the previews up. And so check out the Patreon group. We've got a really cool watch along coming up this month with Carly Smale and the movie Snowden Christmas, which is really a fun movie. And so if you want to get behind the scenes of movie making and how it is to write a script and get things made, this will be really interesting for you. And I just try to make the Patreon as big a bang for your buck as I possibly can. And so definitely check it out. I would really appreciate it. We got some new designs at the merch store, particularly for Christmas and about Christmas movies. And I think they turned out really fun. So take a look at that. They're on sale, I think, for the next 2 days. So definitely take a look now while you have the chance. And I'd sure appreciate it. Got lots of cool designs over there, including this I Love Rom-Com shirt over there at the merch store. So take a look at that. And yeah, I think that's everything. Let's see here. Got a couple. My Fair Lady is my second favorite musical behind Sound of Music, even just a hair ahead of Mary Poppins. Yeah, I can understand that. And then, like I said, especially if the humor is, I mean, I like My Fair Lady way better than the stage version of Mary Poppins. But as far as movie, yeah, I can understand that. And it's a really, I think it's underrated for how funny it can be, depending on how it's done. And that movie is really enjoyable. And so there we go. That is it. So again, let me know what your six favorite movies are for the year. And I hope you're all doing well. And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.